Up to you.
So good evening and welcome and happy new year to everyone. It's nice to see you all again and to see you online. Ellen and Summer, can you hear us okay? Awesome, that's great. I'd like to call this meeting the City of Lake Forest Park City Council Work Session for Thursday, January 9th, 2025. Can't believe we're in 2025, folks. To order, I entertain a motion for adoption of the agenda.
So moved.
Been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, that's adopted by unanimous consent. Thank you, everyone. We have a singular item here on for discussion this evening. Resolution 25/1997, adopting the capital improvement plan for 2025-2030. Wow, that seems like a long ways away, but it's not. And with that, I believe Administrator Hill is going to be here in this.
I've got this one for now. Yeah. So council, you remember back in August, Public Works Director and I brought this before you. This is 25 through 2030 capital improvement plan. You've got the 3 sheets that detail by biennium. You adopted the 25-26 program as part of your budget for 25-26. The out years are merely what could potentially occur. Obviously, there are some projects that spill over year to year. The Lakefront Park project will be over several years. The sewer lift station, obviously our road overlays. So this just lays out, as you remember from our presentation back in August, projects with funding challenges, the numbers are in red. Green was identified as projects that could be paid for by the new traffic camera revenue. And then as well on here in the greenish tan color, in the last column in each year, are funds identified as grant funding that's going towards a project. And then at the back of this, as you'll remember, you have a little bit more detail of what each project pays for. And so I just wanted to loop back during this session and see if you had any questions from back when we discussed this in August, or if you had any questions now after we've gotten through the budget process. But we can discuss. And as part of the adoption of this meets a requirement that Director Hoffman needs as part of his comp plan to have a capital improvement plan in place for the next 6 years. So I will do my best to answer all questions.
Thank you. Maybe it's because the set is too small and I'm too old. I don't see the public work bit of this project that's ongoing on the list or the SR 520 over capacity. So we could
material things used to be on here. Let's see.
because they do represent it.
Yeah, they're doing this.
So does the overcast. Again, maybe it's just because we get more.
Well, I have the same eye problem, and but I'm not. Wait. Oh, that's Ben's rooftop solar.
Upwards bins.
Yeah, I'm not seeing the bins.
You could have both of those onto the list.
Yep, we will.
Yeah, there is. I appreciate the backup on the individual items. But where we have things like project cost method of financing, city funding percent, and so on. And there's some areas that are not clear or not built in or not consistent. We just scan through those.
Do you have one for an example, just so I can look?
Method of finance maybe from one of them just shows. Yeah, so annual street overlay method of finance. And low, medium, high, does that mean something in terms of
Prioritization.
okay, but it talks about project rating. So was that intended to rate the project in terms of viability, or is it
I believe when Director Perigo put this together, that was Yeah, that is like, it's a high priority. It says project ratings, and that should probably be more like project priority. So,
Then there are things like design of sidewalk for 37. City funding percent is 0. That are paid for by the city. You can just go through this,
details.
Just
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We'll check with our colleagues online. Councilmember Saunders, Councilmember Riddle, any questions as of yet? Maybe.
Yeah. Similarly, there's some disconnects, I think, between the head sheet and then some of the detail sheets. Some of the numbers didn't match. So just kind of clearing through that, I think the park property, the master plan for the property development for Sims and SPU, they're indicated on the head sheet as being in 2025, but they're in 2027 on the detail sheets. I think 2027 makes more sense, kind of after we look at our existing master plan for our existing parks and trails, and to develop those two as a continuation of that process and not independently from that process. So I would say I would agree more with the detail sheets on that one. And then there was one other area at the very item 2049 in the stormwater surface water. Replace surface water crossings, miscellaneous projects. What kind of projects might that be?
that would be like the project we just did up by Grace Cole Park. It's at 28th.
Okay.
We have a few areas that have been identified by the Public Works Maintenance crew where they know of similar types of situations where we're worried about where the water flow might actually be going. And so as everything's aging, this is something that we thought we should start programming in. So we have the dollars to do that work, or at least we are aware that that is an issue that's coming at us.
Okay, so that's just like a kind of a hold number to allow us to do some of that work as we identify it over the years.
Correct. As you remember with that project, emergency, and we had to go back and allocate funds. And so this is just something to identify that in those outer years.
Would the intention be to roll over unused funds to
Yeah, it would be
be
just
able to
like,
do more work?
if there were leftover funds, that it could roll year to year.
Okay. I think that was the biggest thing, two things that I had questions about.
Thank you. Councilmember Furton.
Thank you. And to follow up on Councilmember Riddle's question, is it okay to use sewer capital money to do stormwater? Because that's where I noticed the red number is on that same line that she was talking about at the very bottom.
No, so you can't use sewer capital to do stormwater.
Okay, so should that number be moved over to the left one?
Or which one are you looking at? Oh, that same program?
Yes.
That's under
Um,
sewer.
Yeah, that
capital.
should be under stormwater management
Okay.
capital.
Okay. And then completely unrelated question. I noticed that we have the solar
Oh, yeah. Thank
panels
you.
for the parking lot, for the city hall parking lot. But we don't have the EV charger, the thing that we just got the grant for listed yet. Is that going to be listed, or is that a completely different thing?
I mean, I guess you could go back. It wasn't really. It was done outside of the CIP. It wasn't,
Okay.
that's something we ever planned on. It's just suddenly there was a funding source to apply for. And so we went and got it and it became a project. We could certainly put it on here. Just to track it because it is now a capital project. So we can go back and add that with the bins and the overpass.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Councilmember. Alex. So Golden.
Yeah, I have a bunch of questions, but I'll be happy to let others go in between them. Question one, if there are projects that have no money listed for any of the 6 years, does that just mean that they're sort of nice projects that are on the shelf for if a funding opportunity presents itself?
So maybe one, for example.
Let's say McKinnon Trail. we're not-
Yes, that's exactly what that is.
We were just
That's a
talking about
nice to
that today.
have. That's something we would like to do. But until we have an agreement between the city and the water district on what that might be and how we could do that, we've talked about joint effort. Yeah, it's something from an old plan, but it's a legacy thing that should be addressed sooner or later.
It's in safe sidewalks, whatever it is. Safe streets.
Safe streets.
It's in safe streets. Yeah.
Next, next question or?
Yeah,
Please go ahead.
If you look at item number 17, master plan for existing parks and trails.
Correct.
I just want to confirm, is that looking exclusively at our existing parks and upgrades, or is that also considering opportunities for new park space?
My understanding, this would be a master plan for the existing parks and trails, because we have, you go back and look at the pros plan, we don't have a lot of detail in those. This shows in 25, Mark, this was something I think community development would take, and I thought we moved it to 26. I see a number in 25.
Yeah, the wording on the detail sheet is different than what we discussed in budget. There was prior money to do various things to the growth plan brought up there. That went away, and we were gonna do one element, which is essentially inventory. What do we have? What is it being used for? And amend the existing post plans. So this might be a separate item in a later year.
Yeah, this was to go through and master plan. So we've got 5 Acre Woods, which has a very cartoon style design to it. We've now added to the property. There should be a plan done for that. There was some thoughts in the pros plan about what Sims could be, but it wasn't at a level of detail. The thought process was, and this, I'm sure we'll have more discussion now with the new public works director of what these look like and how we integrate that between the two departments, community development being the other department.
Just as a reminder, this goes back quite a while, we were able to secure certain kinds of grant funds using the pros plan. But technically, we need to have a parks master plan in place for some of the applications. So we can avoid explaining to the people who are applying grants that this is our existing plan, but we have our pros plan as well. So this is much more discreet from.
And to Director Hoffman's point, as far as pros plan, we will be updating our pros plan in 2025. Correct? Amending as it will be expiring, and to be able to continue to be eligible for grant opportunities we pursued in the past. That's what we need to do. We have confirmed that amending will be sufficient to keep it alive and well.
Hey, Tom, can I ask my third question? Sort of, as a council, we've discussed a number of master plans. I think 3 that come to mind are looking at new potential park properties, street overlays, having some sort of scoring system for that, and also safe streets improvements. Are those master plans the sort of thing that should be on this capital improvement plan, or is that sort of a different field?
In my mind, that would be a different field. It's not a capital project. I think that would be in the goal setting of the council retreat, or just at council meeting workshop of setting some goals, and that does require some allocation of funds as well. So maybe for the mid-buy.
Deputy Mayor Bodie?
Yes, along those lines, I really appreciate that comment, Councilmember Goldman, and I think it would be good to, at an appropriate time when we have breathing room, to have a discussion of the various plan updates and master plans. Have a combined conversation and talk a little bit about what our plans for those might be. I think I would find that helpful, because if you recall, a lot of the plans we have right now came out of the retreat and what was it called? Whatever, the 5 goals.
The big 5.
The big 5. Yeah, sorry.
They're down to the big 5,
Yeah,
so
yeah, the big 5 goal. And so it would be helpful to, and I think in our last retreat, we kind of assumed that things that we had in play were going to continue, but having a refresh discussion on that, I think would be good for everyone. And then we can kind of all be on the same page and talk about what's going to get updated and what's not. So perhaps safe streets can get updated with, if traffic camera revenue does continue to materialize, perhaps we could update safe streets with that, for example. So having a discussion of those plans would be, I think, very helpful, because we've been well served by those big 5 plans, and so we want to continue to have that launching pad or other things.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Let me go around the horn just quickly, Summer, to check to see if there's anyone else that would like to speak. Ellen, did you have any questions? Okay, Summer, please.
Thank you. Kind of in that line, I think it would be useful instead of using the colors to actually create an 002 fund sort of transportation capital zone. In the event that, let's say, a project could be partially funded out of the traditional transportation capital, but also perhaps the 002 projects. I'm thinking maybe our street overlays, maybe the pedestrian improvement portion of our street overlay project can be supported by the 002 fund as we're creating these safer pathways, versus having it all covered under the transportation overlay and then us not getting as many miles out of those dollars. So I'd like to maybe see that and to see if we've got any areas where we can start utilizing that 002 fund to maximize our other money in other areas
Yeah. And just
appropriately.
and to that point, that's a good point, and that is actually what we're planning on doing with the overlay project that we're doing up the north end of the city. Those roads do support a walkway, and the money that is in this budget that comes out of the TBD is paying strictly for the asphalt overlay, gets us more miles. And then we will, as we did with 35th, it's a separate contractor that would come in and do the extruded curve for that walkway adjacent. So they will be different funds and even different contractors to get that work done.
Okay. Yeah, 'cause, looking at like the ADA ramp design, I don't know if those ramp design and construction would fall under the safety umbrella of the 002 fund money. But again, things that can help us extend the different buckets to get the most out of each of them.
Yep. Thank you, Councilmember. Colleagues, other questions?
I just wanted to bring one to your attention. This came up in a meeting we had yesterday under transportation guardrail replacement. Just to remind you that the reason that's now in there, that used to be something the county would do for us, and they are pulling back and not doing that for us any longer. So we will be needing to go out for a contract, which means it's going to cost more because county is a good deal, but they don't have the capacity to do that work for us anymore. So fingers crossed that we keep doing overlays for a long time.
Mr. Yellen Point reminded me, it was on the GO Trail today, that guardrail has been that way for about 18 months. And I know the residents have been concerned about it. See if we can get that on that. That may have fallen through the cracks with, yeah, with the transition between the old and the new. Thank you for that. Vice Chair Fertoni.
And then appreciate Mayor, you're mentioning that I just rode by it on the way here, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are you guys local traffic? I'm just not.
I was on bike.
Yeah. Okay, what else do we have, folks, here? That is there anything else you'd like to highlight, Mr. Ho?
No, as I mentioned, the 27 and 28, 29, 30, those are just, a lot of that is just projects that we do on an annual basis. And then just planning out the CL 110. Obviously, that's our next culvert to do. No funding for that, but we need to start programming projects such as that so that we have a true understanding of what's coming at us as far as costs. So yeah, I think the one thing that identifies in here, like I said at the start, is to begin getting some design on some safe routes. 10%, so we can start applying for grants and moving those forward.
Excuse me, Deputy Mayor Bodie.
Yes, thank you. One more quick question. So going out into the further out years, would we not do some design work for Briarcrest area sidewalks
Oh, yeah.
in those out years?
Yeah, we definitely
somewhere?
would, and that's something we
Yeah.
should discuss the next time we go through
Again,
this.
I assume that's the case, but considering this goes out 6 years, I thought I would mention it.
Yeah, this just picked those top two off of the safe streets.
Right,
set,
okay.
So,
Well, and Deputy Bodie, to your point, I really like the idea of kind of for staff to sit down and take a look at the previous plans, see what the statutory requirements for updates, as well as what the need is, probably in several cases, to update things, because now we're looking at 7-8 years on some of these.
Yeah.
So and the 160th program is something we've talked about for a considerable amount of time. It
Right,
really
and
needs to
we
happen.
need to just I don't even think we have a clarified concept of exactly what it would be.
Absolutely.
And also, I think it helps with kind of geographic diversity of our projects.
Yeah, that's where Golden started reaching.
Yeah, a few quick hits. First, just a quick request. In these packets, is it possible for you to put the project numbers on? It just makes it a lot easier because not all of these projects have a page here. So it's
Yeah.
easier. I was looking at the street overlays. In the big paper, it says 550 a year. But on the packet, it only has 300 a year. So again, just make, checking on which number is accurate. And a joke question, why is there no project number 10?
Oh, it's like 413.
Yeah, exactly.
No, that's,
Good question. I have no idea. Let's see, the rest of the numbers line up. Yeah, we can add the project numbers.
Good catch.
I see Councilmember Riddle's hand up.
yeah, Councilmember Riddle.
Thank you. I think in a continuation of identifying some of these numbers that don't quite match between the spreadsheet and what we've talked about, do you have when can you turn around and provide us sort of that updated, cleaned up version with the project numbers and for us to sort of review it one more time, complete, before the next time it comes to council officially? Because sometimes it's hard to track and see what the intent is.
Yeah, actually, this was meant to be adopted tonight to get Director Hoffman what he needs. This is going to take a little bit of time to turn around, honestly, until I get a public works director on staff. Like I said, this hasn't been touched since August. This is just, this should have been adopted earlier well, later in 2024. We can definitely clean that up. I would say as far as numbers, the sheets are accurate. The backup sheets are where the break is.
Okay, so the head sheet with the everything together is more accurate.
Yes, that was what
Okay.
we were working on. Last minute, I'm like, hey, we need to update these backup pages as well. And I think that's where it broke down.
Okay. And so would you recommend us provisionally update or approving this with the intention for updates to come? Or do you prefer us to wait to approve it?
What's your timeline, Mark?
We adopted the plan and it will be a review comment. I don't know that there's a negative impact, but it'd be nice to have.
Do you think we got it done in early February?
If we did in February, I would just continue the story I'm telling right now.
Okay.
There's no negative impact.
I think based on that, we can take a little bit of time to line these up for you.
Yeah.
Okay.
So maybe
What,
yank it from your agenda later tonight and we'll go back and clean it up for you.
Yeah,
much appreciated.
thank you, everybody.
New director starts on the 27th.
Yeah.
I need to give her a few days to.
Yeah. By the way, here you go, reconcile this.
Yeah,
Uh,
no, I will be reconciling it, but right now I'm playing public works director.
yeah, and I'm
And
point.
project manager.
I know everybody has been super considerate of the fact that Phil's been wearing a tremendous number of hats, so his hat tree is full. So, and I'm hoping we can take a couple off soon here, at least one.
Yeah, I wanted to loop back to a couple of projects that were brought up on the material bins, just to give you an update. Construction drawings started coming in today, so I reached back to them today to fill out the building permit and get us a site plan, and then we'll get our consulting building official reviewing that, and then the EV chargers, we're moving those forward. It's Consor, they've done all the work for us. We'll be giving us quotes on design and construction management on both of those projects. So those are both moving forward as well. So
One more quick update since we have time, if everybody's amenable on this. It's sort of tangential and CIP related, but the signs are getting installed for the new speed limits. Probably have seen the education component that Phil and the team have put together. So those will be in effect February 4th.
So the install will be the 30th and 31st by King County. And so that following Monday, they will be enforced.
And I thank you all for that, because that represents almost 3 years to the day of work by this many people in this body. So definitely we're really
Along those same lines, it would be helpful if we could request DOT to put one more 35-mile-an-hour speed limit sign south of the one that's southbound and on the one that's northbound, if they could put a couple there because there's no sign.
This
So
on
I was-
522.
Huh?
On 522.
Five
And 522.
After you mentioned that to the
Yes,
deputy
I was
mayor,
under the impression that the speed limit hadn't been changed northbound, because I
uh,
never saw a sign change.
So on point, after you mentioned that to me, I went up there and there were two.
There
One of
are?
them's missing. The
Oh,
one near the watercress there was one kind of in mid-block before
Really?
155th. It's missing.
Oh.
And the only one is up by, right now is up by Taco Bell with the flags on it,
Oh.
going northbound. So,
obviously, when I'm turning, I'm not looking over there to see the
yeah,
sign.
I absolutely agree with
So
you.
it's not the greatest location because all the turn traffic is paying attention to staying in lane, you know?
Well, and similarly, on 104, both directions between 35th and
Yeah.
our city limits, there are only two signs each
Yeah.
way. There needs to be 4.
I could see people legitimately saying, you know, well, I didn't think that was the speed limit there. So just
Yeah.
would be helpful.
Thank you for that. Colleagues, Vice Chair Furtony.
Talking about signs, are we gonna put some signs up soon about the closure or potential rerouting for the L100 project and the 104?
I'd have checked with WashDOT on that.
Okay.
They did put together a plan that's on their website. I think we're even linked to that, for people to see.
Okay.
Okay, so I think that was earlier today. They are going up to bid for that project by the end of this month. So,
Yeah, I did get a question like, what's happening at the garage, you know?
Yeah. So for everyone's edification, if you get a chance, take a look at the website. It does have the detour going around. I believe it's going to be 6 weeks for the WashDOT. My understanding is that for the roundabout, they're going to try to do very limited closures, but it's going to be squeezed down to
yeah, I
One.
think they're gonna try and keep
two or two.
two directions going, but just, they do this a lot with roundabout, shift side to side as much as they can. So,
So one of the things we'll be bringing back to you all too on point about the culvert projects and the roundabout is because of the detour, we're going to be looking at traffic calming measures for 195th and 35th. And some of that's going to involve an enhanced camera program on 35th because concerned about people tearing up 35th past the preschool and or in the two very busy crosswalks there. As well as some additional signage and waste for traffic calming on 195th there to ensure that those residents don't have issues. They already have some challenges right now. We've heard about them. So. But that program is out there to take a look at the detour. Okay, any other topics, comments on topic? Okay, with that, we're adjourned here. We're going to move upstairs and start at yeah, you've got 30 minutes. Start at 7 o'clock.
Well, this crap.
we can recycle it for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I